I would like to officially start this meeting. It's 7 a.m. in Brazil. Yeah. And as you can see, we already have a good group of physicians and scientists from Brazil waiting for this talk. And I want to thank you. I want to thank you very much. I know that it's not easy with all the responsibilities you have on your shoulders and all the problems you have in China. It's not easy to find time. And we appreciate very much you and your team to be with us. We respect China, and especially we respect all the efforts and the brilliant example that your country has done regarding this pandemic. You know that in Brazil right now, we're having a very dramatic situation. And one of the goals of this meeting is to understand with your experience to make our fight easier to carry on. So we, as I said, we have academicians, we have physicians, and we have scientists here. And the idea is to share our questions and appreciate your experience. So these are the initial words that I'd like to have. As you know, we have Professor Osvaldo Moura Brasil and Mauricio Magalhães with us. You met in China last year, and we have also Professor and our former President, Jorge Alberto Costa, who is the one that started this relationship with China. We have the presence of the Consul General of China in Rio de Janeiro, and he would like to say some words, but I believe that he's a little bit late, so we're gonna leave him to talk later in order not to get our program delayed. So after that, I would like to give the word to Professor Magalhães and Moura Brasil to also say some welcome words to you. Mauricio.
Thank you.
Good morning, Professor Zhu and all the colleagues from China. Once again, I'd like to thank for the kind reception that we had last year in CDC. We're very well impressed. Like Osvaldo said, we couldn't imagine this dramatic situation that we have now, but we are confident that we will make it, overtake it, and in the next months we'll be in a better situation. And surely your contribution of your team and your experience will help us in this very dramatic moment that we have in our society in Brazil and now in our continent for the next. I'd like to thank, and I hope that it will be a very profitable meeting. Thank you very much for your welcome, for your attention.
Good morning, all, and special Professor Zhu. It was a very pleasure to be with you again. And I always remember the hospitality, the good moments we had in China last year, August. And I'm confident that this meeting will be very, very important to Brazil. And you will bring us your experience in this tragedy that is all over the world. And we hope we can take good informations from your experience. Thank you very much for your presence here in this web meeting.
Yeah, thank you. It's our pleasure. And after I received your request, and it reminds us we are met in Shanghai last year, and we also after last year we also had some exchange on how to improve our cooperation. So this is a good chance for our exchange, academic exchange, and we can set up a formal cooperation in the future. So may I first, I would like to introduce my colleague, Dr. Dong Xiaoping. He is the chief of the Global Health Center in the China CDC, based in Beijing. And I hope he can deliver some opening remarks. Doctor, on behalf of our Director General. of China CDC. So Dr. Dong, please.
Oh, thank you very much, Professor Zhou. Yeah, good morning and good evening, dear colleagues from China and from Brazil. My name is Dong. I'm a professor of biology. I'm director of the Center for Global Public Health. Meanwhile, I have some other different positions for scientific research. And on behalf of our boss, Dr. George Gao-Fu, the DG of China CDC, I would like to express my, sincerely appreciation to our distinguished, Brazilian colleagues. I'm looking forward to hear the talk from our colleagues as well as from Brazilian colleagues, not only on the academic science point, but also focus on the public health as well focus on the clinic. And I do wish we can get very good, very fruitful result after discussion and exchange experience and lessons in the field of the battering against the COVID-19. So I'd like to leave the time for my colleague, Professor Xiaonong Zhou and Professor Wu Zhunyou. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. So should we move to the first agenda? So my colleague,
Yes.
Yes.
The consul of China in Rio de Janeiro has arrived, and he has requested also to say some words to salute you. So could you please, I never met him, so could you please go ahead and introduce yourself, please?
Oh, okay, thank you.
The consul is going to introduce.
Yes. My name is Xiaonong Zhou. I'm the director of the National Institute of Parasitic Disease, China CDC, as well as the Chinese Center for Tropical Disease Research. And our institute has been established for 70 years, and we are mainly focused on the tropical disease as well as the parasitic disease in China. And since our institute has moved forward on the elimination of some of the parasitic disease, such as lymphatic filariasis, malaria, and schistosomiasis. All those for example, the lymphatic filariasis has been eliminated in China in 2007, and the malaria are going to be eliminated this year. And so we are engaged more on the global health now and also in the future. So we really would like to do more work or program to incorporate with other countries in the low or middle income countries. So I'm very happy I met your president in Geneva 2 years ago in the WHO meeting, and we already did several discussions on how about our cooperation in the future. So this is a good chance for us to have this cooperation. At least we can do some academic exchange on against the COVID-19 pandemic. So when I reported to my boss, DG of China CDC, Dr. Gao Fu, and he is very appreciated for this opportunity to do this academic exchange. So my institute based in Shanghai, and our headquarters of China CDC based in Beijing. So I specifically invite one colleague from Shanghai, Dr. Xiaoning, and he actually had experiences for against the COVID-19 pandemic, and he went to Italy for the several days, more than 10 days, and to help Italy. So he also had some experiences on this topic. And we also invited two colleagues from headquarters of China CDC and based in Beijing. And both of them involve the national strategy setting against the COVID-19. So they have a lot of experiences on how to set up the prevention policy and strategies, as well as because both of them are biologists as well. So they will give some response to your several questions. And at the same time, I also invited two colleagues from Beijing Hospital, Shanghai Jiaotong University School of Medicine. And this hospital is actually the top hospital and the biggest hospital in Shanghai, and also in one of the toppest in China. So, and they both of the medical doctor actually they went to the Wuhan to help the local hospital to battle with the COVID-19 epidemic. So they have a very rich experience on the clinical issue. So which means we have some working on the disease control and the prevention, some working on the biology, and also some working on the clinical to answer your questions after two presentations. So based on the agenda, we have this opportunity to we can work together and exchange ideas together. So thank you for your invitation to participate in this China Brazil mutual meeting. Thank you. So should we?
We are also on Facebook, and the Consul General, Mr. Li Yang. Could you also say some words now?
Yes. President Rubens and Dr. Zhou Xiaoneng, dear colleagues, friends, morning and good afternoon. I feel very happy to be part of this video conference. We all know this moment is a critical moment. Now we are facing how to say an unprecedented pandemic. Yeah. More than nearly around 200 countries have been infected by this deadly virus, and we two countries, both Brazil and China, were all victims of this virus. So at this moment, we have no choice. We have to be playing together. We have to work together. And this video conference, I believe, is part of this joint efforts. And history has demonstrated that facing every severe virus, eventually that mankind will definitely conquer the most deadly virus. We will be there, we will succeed. So let's continue our joint efforts. Thank you, colleagues. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you very much. It's an honor to have you here, and we anticipated that more and more Brazil and China will be together. We have lots of things in common, and this is also an invitation to our Chinese guests today. We hope that in the near future, we're going to host you for a real meeting in one of the most beautiful cities of the world, that is Rio de Janeiro. Life will go on, and I'm pretty sure that we're going to celebrate in the future all the efforts and this difficult time. I'm going to give the word now to Professor Zhu to introduce the speakers from China. We are right on time. It's 7:15. It's time to start our scientific program. Professor Zhu, thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. So now may I move to the agenda 1. So I would like to introduce my colleague, Dr. Wu Zhenyu. He is chief scientist on the epidemiology in China CDC. So he had a long history working on the HIV epidemiology. And so he is one of top experts involved the national policy level on against the COVID-19 pandemic. so in China. So Dr. Wu Zhenyu, your presentation now.
Good morning. Is the voice okay? Just check.
Yes,
So
yes,
I'm
voice fine. Voice fine.
Right, thank you. So I make this presentation on behalf of Dr. Gao. So he has now a very important meeting in the National Health Commission. So I make this presentation on his behalf. So we will update the COVID-19 epidemic and want to share with you our experience. So the second slide shows you the epidemic curve. The epidemic started in the later December last year, and it took us a little bit more than 2 months. We brought the epidemic under control. Now, the number of cases, it's very small. Its majority come from imported cases. So the great challenge we are now is to prevent importation of cases and prevent the possible second wave epidemic. To review in the past 3 months what we did, I think we could summarize 8 very important lessons we learned, and we want to share with you. The first, science-driven response. That's very important. So in terms of responding to this epidemic, so we heavily rely on scientific finding and use science to guide us our response. So when the epidemic started, it only took us about 7 days. We isolated the virus, identify coronavirus, it's the pathogen for the COVID-19. Then it took us another 4 days. We developed the RT-PCR diagnostic kits sent to Wuhan for clinical diagnosis. And we quickly shared the virus sequence with WHO and upload the sequence to the global flu database. That sequence shared with the world. So every country can use that sequence to make a diagnostic test kits. The second lesson, I think very important, is called traditional public health measures. So far, we do not have pharmaceutical or biological weapon to against the COVID-19. So the controlling effective measures that include quickly identify or detection of cases, isolated cases, and provide clinical treatment. And to quickly determine close contactors and put close contactors in the quarantine that to remove possible infectious person from the community. The other public health measures including social distancing, mask wearing, hand washing. That's all combined are very important. I think the critically important in China, we have mobilized all the population to respond. That's critically important. The number 3, during the early epidemic, we have 2 bottlenecks needed to be broke. One is limited hospital beds. The second is the capacity to provide tests. So you may say from media, in the early stage, it was only about 2,000 hospital beds available for the infectious disease in Wuhan. Then it expanded to over 50,000 hospital beds by creating new hospitals and modify buildings into the module hospitals. The number 4 is community mobilization and response. As I just mentioned before, the core public health measures that need all the people in the China take action. So community mobilization is critically important. The number 5 is transparent in the communication. So even we do not understand the epidemic in the early stage, for example, we only know it's pneumonia, we do not know what causes that pneumonia. We reported that event to WHO and shared with relative countries. That 3 days before we identify the virus. So we also report that information to the public, and we have the daily press conference to update the progress, epidemic, and our response. So communication is very important. Then the number 6, it's international cooperation. So in the early stage, so we inform our colleagues in the other countries, and we communicate, we talk about response we have. Like even today, so we have a video conference with our Brazilian colleagues. That's very important. The number 7, the stronger leadership, coordination and cooperation. So in the Chinese government, we have multilateral government sector collaboration, coordination, and also that linked with logistical support. Particularly in the early stage, we need a lot of oxygen, we need PPE and ventilate. All this logistical support are critically important for successful controlling the epidemic. So the epidemic in China is not evenly distributed. Then we use a science-driven method to timely adjust the community, divide the community in the different risk level. So we have the low risk level and the middle risk level and the high risk level. For low risk levels, so community have no confirmed cases or no new confirmed cases. So for the middle risk, and it's a cumulative number confirmed cases, it's within a certain number and have no community transmission. For the high risk area, it's have a cluster and community transmission. Different level, we have different strategy to respond. Because COVID-19, it's a new infectious disease, our knowledge is limited. So for the diagnostic and treatment protocols and prevention and control protocols, we're continuing to revise, update with new knowledge we learned. Now we have the version 7 for diagnostic and treatment protocol, and we have version 6. We are now revising prevention and control protocol for version 7, hopefully that will be issued in the next couple of weeks. Traditional containment measures is very important here. I just highlight this containment strategy. So the first is detection and isolation and quarantine. So the 4 earlier is very important. The earlier detection, early isolation, early reporting, and early treatment. The second is movement restriction. We try to reduce the interaction between infected and suspectable. So the lockdown of Wuhan and the neighboring 15 cities in Hubei that I think build a wall between infected and suspected outside of Hubei. That's a very important strategy, reduce the movement of infected people from Hubei to the rest of China, and also reduce the movement from Hubei to the rest of the world. Very, very important, powerful strategy. Then we have infection prevention control in the hospital settings. So I do not repeat every of this containment. So to save time, I just move to the next slides. So early active case detection, that is critically important. In the early stage, no matter in the middle or even now, so early detection is to remove infected people from a community. So we have 5 strategies for early detection of cases. Another important strategy we have in China, it's a very important, maybe unique. We have 5 web-based reporting system, notifiable individual case information system that is universal for all notifiable diseases, not just for COVID-19, that including for like hepatitis, HIV, and other infectious diseases as well. The second is a public health events information management system that reporting cluster cases. The third is epidemiological investigation information system. That information is very detailed epidemiological investigation for newly diagnosed cases or suspected cases. The number 4 is close contact tracing and management. The number 5, there's a monitoring system. All these 5 data systems, we download the data every day and we analyze data every day, use that data to guide us to response, for us to understand where epidemic goes and how impact of prevention measures, and also as evaluation tool. So it's a very critical, important, use this data for timely analysis, use this data, guide us response. For case management, we have for the suspected cases, they should be isolated in the single room. In the initial stage, we put suspected people in the same places. That's a mistake. Then we recognize some suspected may infected, some may not. So they cannot put it in the one room. For the confirmed cases and asymptomatic cases, because they are both infected or confirmed or asymptomatic, they already have the virus. So they can be isolated in the same room. That's okay. For example, we put all the big module hospital. They have big space, like 100 for patients, light patients in the one ward. For the discharged cases, will be isolation and also have health monitor for another 14 days. So we are not sure how that movement, because even discharged cases, they may continue to be tested RT-PCR positive in order to prevent possible transmission and to understand the spectrum. So we just let them to be monitored for another 14 days. Contact tracing is a very important public health strategy. Once a case was diagnosed, we will have the epidemiological investigation team to contact diagnosed cases, try to ask them in the past 14 days how many people they have been contacted with. Those close contactors are at high risk of being exposed, to be probably infected, because COVID-19 case, the virus shedding start 1 or 2 days before onset of symptom. So that's very important to get close contact to be identified, to be quarantined. If they develop symptoms, we can quickly catch them and send them to the hospital for treatment. So we use the multi-department cooperation and epidemiological investigation, combine all of this together to making sure we can identify, complete, fully all the close contactors as much as possible, as quickly as possible. For contact management, all the close contactors needed to be quarantined. They could be either quarantined at home or quarantined at designated places. In the early epidemic, we put them quarantine at home. We recognize at home is not a good strategy. It causes transmission among the quarantined people and their family members. So because the household is not good enough to have really quarantine, so then we change the policy. All the close contact have to be in the designated places. The duration is for 14 days. So during that quarantine, their temperature and symptom are monitored twice a day. So people in the quarantine, no outdoor activity is allowed. Another important is mask wearing. That is critically important given the virus shedding before the onset of symptom. People infected, they may not aware they're infected. So that's why in the public, everybody needed to wear mask, particularly in the crowded area. For example, in the airport, in the train station, in the closed setting like in the shuttle bus, these settings. So we understand from media in the early stage in the European or even in the United States, people does not pay too much attention to the mask. So based on our understanding, the mask is critically important to stop the transmission in the community. So for the general public, we have the guidance. So there's no need in the general at home if there's no patient at home, and there's no need to wear mask in the open area. And wear a mask, it's encouraged when in the gathering, in the elevator, and in the public vehicles, or have face-to-face interact. For occupational exposure, like settings like healthcare settings, airplane, public vehicle, or supermarket, restaurant, so that need to be wear mask. For health professionals, they need to wear KN95 or N95. For others, surgical mask will be good enough. So we use the multiple form and platform for health promotion. So new media are used for the communication with the public. We developed the certified professional health guidelines, and also we produced 31 videos for different population group and scenario to be used. We use multimedia interactive dissemination to disseminate the information to the public and to the other institutes. The key experience here we summarize four. The first is 4 defense lines. We divided China into 4 different priorities. The first defense line is Wuhan and Hubei. Then in Hubei, the second defense line is Beijing, the capital. The third defense line is provinces surrounding Hubei. The fourth defense line is nationwide. So we prioritize, then we could use our efforts, concentrate the first and the second defense line, making sure that we will win. If we win the first or second, we will win the finally. The 4 areas that also critical important: early detection, early reporting, early isolation, early treatment for COVID-19 cases. The community, very important. All this response is for the people, by the people. Everybody need to take action, not just health professionals, not just government officials. Everybody need to take action. We have 3 C's: coordination, cooperation, and communication. When COVID-19 outbreak taken in the early stage, we do not know the future movement. It could be like SARS, could be like flu. Now it's clearly COVID-19 will not be go quickly as SARS as it was in 2003. So we will dance with the virus for a long time. So then we need to have a long-term strategy to defense. So strict prevention importation is very important for China, and also we need to have a community response to prevent possible second wave. So the strategy for dance with virus in China, that including control strategy for importing the cases. We also tailor control measures at different risk level. So we re-categorize our community in the different levels. In the response to the epidemic, at the same time, we try to resume production and work. And prevention and control protocol are revised based on the changed situation in China. Control strategies for the imported cases include the following. So we have built up the whole chain management from aboard to the border and to community to the home. There's no gap, the link to the servers. At entry point, we have screening. We ask travelers about their 14 days history, and we monitor their temperature. We categorize people into 4 different categories. And for people suspected symptoms, need to have the medical examination. For suspected cases, we'll transfer to the hospital. For the close contactors, we'll put in the designated hospital for quarantine. So quarantine for travelers, it is for 2 weeks. No matter domestic citizen or foreigners, it is required for 14 days. Another important topic we are facing is resuming measures. Try to restart our work, reopen. So we use the health code and the travel card, making sure people are healthy, then they could re-engage their work. And we also create point-to-point, the neighbor cooperation, making sure migrants move from their home to the manufacturer have direct travel line. And we have the prevention control guidance for places or factories resume their work. This slide shows you the effectiveness of resuming by the provinces. So most of the provinces have over 70% of productivity resumed. So we are working very hard trying to have the society coming back. Here is another slide to show you effectiveness of resuming by category. So except one below the 70, the rest are already over 75%. So we hope the economic will start going back, continue to increase very soon. So now we are in the transition stage. So we continue to use the risk assessment, make a adjustment for the community, making sure the prevention response are fit in the changed situation. And we still adhere to 4 early strategies. And we try to adjust our approach to balance our control response and economic development. We utilize high-tech, like big data, and AI technology in our response. That's the end of my presentation. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you so much, Dr. Wu. Your presentation is mainly introduced those preventive strategy to be used in the battle against the COVID-19. And the question will be followed later after another clinical presentation. I would like to invite Dr. Chen Wei. So your turn to introduce the clinical issue on the case management, including the diagnosis and the treatment. And Dr.
Thank you
Chen
for
Wei,
such a great talk. Thank you very much for such a great talk. We have here among us also the president of the Brazilian Medical Association and the president and many members of the Brazilian Academy of Pharmacy. And we are all enjoying very much. Thank you. Thank you. Please go ahead.
Yes. Okay. Dr. Chen Wei, are you ready?
Thank you, everyone. Do you hear me?
Yes, very fine. Go ahead.
Okay. I want to sorry, because my problem, my laptop. I try to share with my presentation on my phone, but sorry, it's not.
Maybe.
So okay.
小周，你能
Joe will help me.
小周，你能帮忙吗？
You can share the presentation, please, for Dr. Zhou.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can share the screen for you, and you can make the introduction to everybody.
Okay, thank you. Yeah,
maybe I introduce Dr. Chen Wei a little bit. Dr. Chen Wei is the Vice Chief Medical Doctor working in the Beijing Hospital, and he majoring on the respiratory treatment department. So he's also one of a medical team to be working in the Wuhan to take the emergency response. So he had a lot of experiences to be shared with all our colleagues from Brazil. So Dr. Chen Wei, so you are.
Thank you, Professor Zhou. Thank you.
Okay, I'm now sharing the screen for you, and you can make the introduction to everybody. Okay.
Okay, thank you, my friend.
Okay, let me find your and this one.
Okay. Hello,
Can you read
everyone.
it?
My name is Chen Wei. I'm a physician of the Department of Respiratory and Critical Care Medicine, Shanghai Regional Hospital. I was a member of medical team anti-COVID-19 in Wuhan from February 9 to March 31. In our team, we have 31 specialists, including pneumology, critical care medicine, infection disease, cardiologists and neurologists, and 100 nurses. We have also 5 administrative staff. This director of regional hospital is our team leader, and we have 2 IT and logistics staff, and 1 person responsible for staff protection. Next, please. And we arrived at night at February 9. The date at the airport, more than 20 medical teams from the various Chinese provinces have been sent to Wuhan. Overall, in the last 2 months, up to 42,000 healthcare workers in Wuhan. Next, please. And we treated the COVID-19 patient at the Wuhan Tongji Hospital, Guanggu division. It was a big hospital which has 44 medical wards, 1,000 beds. This hospital dedicated on COVID-19 since February 6th, including 16 units for severe patients, 50 beds for 1 unit, and 1 critical care unit, 30 beds. Total 828 beds. There were 17 medical teams from the different city and province. Each team in charge of 1 unit. Next, please. From February 10 to March 30, 90 patients were admitted in our medical unit. Among them, 68 severe patients, 22 critical patients, 51% of them over 60 years old, 24% of them over 70 years old. About 98 people combined with various comorbidity, such as leukemia, renal failure, severe hypertension, diabetes, advanced lung cancer, coronary heart disease, Parkinson, Alzheimer, etc. Our cure rate is 19%. 81 patients were cured and discharged from the hospital, and only 1 patient died from SARS-CoV-2 infection. Next, please. Our clinical management of the COVID-19 was based on Chinese national guidelines, diagnosis and treatment protocol for novel coronavirus pneumonia released by National Health Commission and National Administration of Traditional Chinese Medicine. Next, please. Next, please. Yeah. During the last 2 months, viral gene sequence test was not available in Wuhan Tongji Hospital. So the diagnosis of the confirmed cases of COVID-19 were using a PCR and specific antibody IgG and IgM. Next, please. Actually, we have a little own experience of the treatment. First of all is MDT, multidisciplinary team. Yeah, 31 specialists. We are a team. We discuss and fix the treatment protocol for every patient. And support therapy is very important. Nutrition, early oral nutrition supplement was prescribed for all patients. If the nutritional requirements cannot be met orally, enteral nutrition would be administered, PEN then TEN. We also IV infusion with albumin. We maintained the serum albumin over 40 grams per liter. High flow was better tolerated than non-invasive ventilation. And if the oxygenation index is below 150 more than 2 hours, we will intubate the patient and put him on the invasive medication ventilation. We have used these 3 antiviral drugs: Abidol, Ritonavir, Ritonavir, hydroxychloroquine. Monotherapy or combined therapy with 2 drugs, but never with 3 drugs. We didn't find the difference in efficacy between different drugs options, but more side effects in the hydroxychloroquine group, and more effects in the ritonavir and lopinavir group. Next, please. For the antibiotic treatment, we do not use it in the early stage of the virus infection, and just used under the proof of bacteria infection. We value the anticoagulating therapy if the Padova score over 4 and EMA between 0.5 to 5, low molecular weight heparin 1 dose per day. If Padova score over 4 and EMA over 5, 1 dose every 12 hours. If FDP over 10 and DDMET over 5, heparin dose by kilo will IV pump for 24 hours. The steroid was used with caution, low dose and short terms. Next, please. And ECMO and CRT, immunotherapy, convalescent plasma, we actually very rare cases. And we also use the traditional Chinese medicine as in the guideline. So that is my short presentation. And next, I will give my speech to my colleague, my friend, Dr. Zhou. He will talk about the protection of medical staff. And please, thank you, Dr. Zhou.
Thank you. And the second part of the presentation will be presented by another Dr. Zhou. He is a young medical doctor, and now is attending doctor, working in the Beijing hospital. and he also went to the Wuhan to participate in the emerging response in the Wuhan. Yuhua, please.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. I'm Joe from Shanghai Regional Hospital, Department of Emergency, and I work for about 50 days at the very front line for anti-COVID-19. So my colleague Chen Wei have introduced the treatment of the COVID-19, and I will introduce some experience for protecting ourselves. So when at the very beginning we arrived in Wuhan, that we mentioned that the priority of all is to protect ourselves. So we have very restricted the protocol to protect ourselves. So I can share some experience on it. And for my PPT, this first slide is the personal protection training. And our training is beginning on February the 10th, the training section. But the training section can be divided into several parts, including very basic washing hand, put on the mask, and in advanced stage is donning and removing the protective clothing. And we know that in all the procedures, that the most important procedure is to removing the protective clothing, because when you enter the cabinet and went out, you are contaminated, and this is the very high risk if you do not obey the standard protocol. And this is our isolation ward, and this isolation ward is rebuilt on the base of routine ordinary ward of ordinary ward. And alongside, according to this image, we can find that we divide in the whole ward into three areas: the clean areas, the semi-contaminated areas, and the contaminated areas. And for the clean areas is for the medical staff to work together and for discuss and hand over. And for the semi-contaminated area is for a buffer for everyone to enter and exit the contaminated area. And we know that the most important part is the semi-contaminated area, and this area can be subdivided into three parts. And from the very beginning to last, we can find that the part have very different functions. And the part that the nearest to the contaminated areas, the removing protective clothing, and in this part we just put off our protect clothing. And the second is removing the surgery gauze and the gloves. And the third, we remove the face mask and the medical caps, and we change the new face mask and the medical caps for the clean areas. And for contaminated area, there are several rooms for patients, and we require patients not exit their room in case they have some very urgent problems. And our section is on the first floor of this hospital, and we know there are several very identical areas in this hospital. And this is the photo of our work in the contaminated areas, and everyone is in very complete protection. And this is for some bedside operation. For example, the test of the ventilator and the test of the non-invasive ventilators. And this is the clean areas, and for clean areas, we do some routine works, and this is the work we are handing over, and do some statistical works. So how we communicate inside and outside the clean area and contaminated area, we use the foam, or we just use some paper to write something on the glasses. And the standard equipment for personal protective is as follows. Everyone who want to enter the contaminated areas must at least with 2 face masks, 2 medical caps, 2 pairs of gloves, 2 pairs of boots, and all this equipment is disposable. So we also require that some N95 masks, especially for the medical use, can be used to entering the cabinet. So for some patients, that in some case that we must do some bedside operation. For example, the nasopharyngeal swabs, the gastrocasters, intubation, tracheostomy, and endoscope. The protection of level must upgraded, and we must plus several equipment with +1 cap, +1 surgery gauze, +1 pair of gloves, and +1 pair of boots, and this to confirm that everyone is in safe. And this is the photo we use. Bedside intubation in Wuhan. That in the basis of the basic protective equipment, we add a mask here. And this is the tracheostomy in Shanghai. And later we have some portable motorized air perfusion system, and this will help us to do the bedside operation more accuracy. And this is only for two cases. One is for the anesthesia to have intubation, and the second is for our emergency doctors for the bedside invasive operations. Motorized air perfusion system help us much in bedside operations. So when we arrived at Wuhan, that we spend the very much effort to training for the standard protocol to turn on the protective clothes, and every time when medical staffs want to enter the cabinet, we have one person is exclusively in charge of the protection of the medical staffs. And when we go outside of the cabinet, one patient is also in charge of the protection of the medical staffs. Everyone, when they put on and put off medical protective equipment, is under surveillance. So this is our video surveillance system for especially for the semi-contamination areas. Also for dinner, we also have requirement, and at most 3 medical staff can have dinner together, and at most 3 medical staffs. Also, our residency in Wuhan is also required to be divided into several areas, non-clean areas, clean areas. And we think that the very strict requirement for the anti-infection make the 0 infection rate for our medical staffs, and we are very proud of it. Thank you very much. This is my share.
Okay, thank you so much for both Dr. Chen and Dr. Zhou, and thank you for your good presentation. So may I pass to my co-chair, Dr. Bruno Belfort? So
yes.
Maybe colleague from the Brazil have some question or quick question.
Yes, thank you very much. I would say that we had a very high expectation. Can you hear me?
Yes, very clear.
Yeah. We had a very high expectation for your presentations, and the quality exceeded our expectations. Congratulations. I think you should be very proud of what you've been doing and the excellence of your medical team. It's a great lesson for Brazil, as well as other Latin American academies that are attending our meeting. I believe the Chinese example has to be really exported to other countries, because we still have many, many months ahead of us, right? I have some questions coming from the academicians. Some of them are more specific. And I'd like to start with one that one academician asked me about what is the indication for CT, chest CT in patients? Do you rely on the images of the chest CT to make the diagnosis or even the prognosis of it? And also in patients that will have to do surgery, not related to the infection, and the PCR is negative, is there any advantage of having the image of the chest CT or not?
Maybe Dr. Chen?
Okay, I will ask the first question. Actually, in Wuhan, in Shanghai, but also in China, every patient presented respiratory symptoms like fever, cough. They will go to the fever clinic. That was the special part inside the public hospital. And over there, they can do CT scan, because the chest X-ray will not find some information. So we do all the people the CT scan. So that was also the first thing we do in the clinic in the fever clinic. And the second question I do not really understand, because there's no it's for surgeon for the surgery, the patient without COVID-19. Is that?
Yes.
Okay. Actually, we just point the hospital. This hospital is especially for COVID-19 patient. Even the COVID-19 positive patient can get the surgery there, and other hospital for the COVID-19 negative patient. So if the patient is without COVID-19, they will go to the special hospital to do the surgery.
Thank you very much. We have now academician Daniel Tabac. Daniel Tabac, please, could you please do it?
Que despontica no nosso ritual, que seja
Daniel Tabac. Okay, it seems that he's not available right now.
陈医生，刚才是他问了一个问题，是关于 CT 的作用，诊断方面的作用。因为有的人 PCR 是阴性，但是 CT
Okay,
I
will add something too. If the PCR is negative, but we find some things image in the CT scan, we will do a second PCR, and we will at the same time do the antibody. If the antibody is negative and the second PCR is negative, we can rule out the COVID-19 and we can go to surgery.
Any other question? I know that we have many academicians interested, so just raise your hand here, please, and we can identify you. I know that there is a doctor that has asked for a question. Dr. Margaret. Margaret would like to ask a question. Also, Dr. Margaret is an expert in infectious disease. And go ahead, please, Margaret.
Oh, thank you so much, Professor Belfort, to give me the floor. I'm very honored to be participating in this meeting. And first of all, I would like to share my warmest compliments to our Chinese colleagues for your remarkable, outstanding work you have been doing. It's really, I am very deeply involved since the very beginning of the first very case in Brazil in this epidemic. And I know a little bit epidemics because I have been working in Africa for some years. And so I would like to raise some very quick questions for you because it's a very, I would say, concern for us at this very moment in Brazil. And the first one will be, how are you dealing in your discussions in terms of perspective about an eventual second wave? I have understand after Dr. Wei presentation that you are training people, you are making controls in the airports and borders. But my question is more, I would say, epidemiological. And then, if I may, I have another question to be raised as well. So, but how are you dealing with this discussion? Because in Brazil, you are in a very, very dramatic moment. The epidemic is still increasing. We didn't reach yet the peak of the curve. And in great cities like São Paulo and Rio, we are living in a very, very complicated moment because the transmissions is not under control. And we are not able to provide, I would say, the proper prevention for the population, and we are not complying in a proper way with social isolation. So we didn't do the best, I would say, homework as you did in China. So because of this, it's a very deep concern that we do have as clinicians, as researchers, about an eventual second wave of transmission, a communitary transmission. And so this is something that I would like to conceptually listen from you. And the second question, if I may, if Professor Belfort allows me, and if we have time, I would raise afterwards.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for a very good question. Probably this question can pass to my colleague, Dr. Wu Zhenyu, about the second wave. Dr. Wu, are you there?
Yes, yes, yes.
Good.
Thank you for that question. Very, very important. So we are confident to prevent possible second wave. So the rationale for our confidence is based on our experience. If we compare the first epidemic when it occurred in Hubei, then we have 30 provinces. So the cases, they move from Hubei to the 30 provinces. Then the 30 provinces, each of the province, the population size similar like a country in the Europe. So in the China. Can you hear? Should I continue?
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. All right. So if we compare, so for example, like a province like in the Anhui or Jiangsu or Hunan, each province have about 60 million to 90 million people, population size. That population size, it's almost equivalent to Italy, to United Kingdom, to France or Spain. However, the number of cases in these provinces, the maximum no more than 1,600. How we did it? So the most important, I think, it's once we have the imported case from Hubei to the provinces, they immediately to detection or identify their close contactors. So we isolate confirmed cases in the hospital setting and separate them from a community. At the same time, we try to make epidemiological investigation, make sure all the close contacts you have be identified, being quarantined. So that does prevent the virus spreading in the community. It's only a small number they brought from Hubei to the provinces. Then they have very small transmission in the family setting, in the cluster. So given that, so there's no community transmission in the other 30 provinces. The most important is early detection of cases and quickly identify their close contacts and put a close contact in the quarantine, making sure they will not spread the virus in the community. Then all the community also take action, have stay at home for more than 2 weeks. So all that combined together is very effective to control the epidemic in that 30 provinces. Given that experience, we are confident even we have some reported case to the China, we are able to control, making sure they are maximum can generate a small cluster cases, cannot spread in the community. So the strategy we used is quickly to identify the early case and put early case in the isolation in the hospital, making sure their close contacts are being identified. So that's the strategy we used. So we hope that will work. Thank you.
Thank you. Another question that we have is from Academician Temporão, former Minister of Health of Brazil. And he says, one of the most discussed topics at the moment is return to normal life. Could you comment on what are the main characteristics of the new normality in China at the present time? How do you rate the situation now compared to last year?
Yeah, maybe Dr. Wu, you continue to respond to this question.
So we are very careful, very slowly to try to going back. So I think the most important priority, we try to booming up our economic at the same time does not have COVID-19 second wave. That's the most important. So we just finished the first round for study, for serological study, trying to understand the spectrum. So the available data suggests that the infection rate in China is very, very low. It's very, very low. So we are focused on detection of early asymptomatic cases. So we are now for using RT-PCR to test the people. They are coming back, they are travelers from other countries. And also we're testing people who are close contacts with asymptomatic cases. And for people moving out of Hubei, in the Hubei, so they have the RT-PCR screening. Now in the Wuhan, Hubei, each day we have over 50,000 tests per day. So if they are tested negative, then they continue to work. So in the entry each of the building, we do have the temperature monitor to monitor your temperature. If you monitor temperature is okay, then you continue to get into the building or go to work. If your temperature is abnormal, then you need to be further medical examination. Also, we have code like I have cell phone. I scan a barcode, then it automatically shows my past 14 days experience or where I have been there. So, for example, I've never been out of Beijing, then indicate I'm safe. So, for each provinces, we have different risk level. If people are coming from a low risk level, then they scan the barcode, they show it's healthy, it's safe. So all of these strategy being used, combination used, making sure people reopen or restart their work, there's no risk. Over. Thank you.
Thank you. Another question is, what is the Chinese experience regarding immunity? Do you believe that infected patients that have recovered are immune? And if so, for how long? Also, how are you measuring right now antibodies?
Okay, so Dr. Chen, maybe you respond to the first part, and then Dr. Wu, maybe you can respond to the second part.
Okay, I think that's for sure. After the infection in the virus, you have the immunity. But the problem is the immunity can continue for a long time or just for this time. We do not know now. And actually, we detected the serum IgG and IgM now for every patient in Wuhan. And now in Shanghai, even the patient even the patient will get into the hospital, they will take the test too, and we will see a big data. I think Dr. Wu will ask the question better.
Okay, Dr. Wu, please, can you respond to the second part of the question?
For that part, I think it's the best for our virologist, Professor Dong Xiaoping. So
okay.
He might better to answer that.
Okay, Dr. Dong, please.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay.
Without camera. Well, I turn it on. Well?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. I would like to answer the question from very beginning regarding the immunity after disease. So actually nobody knows, but from epidemiologist data, we don't know, identify or notice any patient who recovered from COVID-19 become reinfected. And for other experience, for example, the SARS, there is also no such patient be infected again by SARS-CoV coronavirus in 2003. Of course, we don't know exactly which kind of antibody titer can provide the efficiency, immunity, protection. However, from the clinical side as well as from the epidemiological side, we might assume that the patient covered, that means confirmed case, recovered from the COVID-19 infection, might have immunity protectivity against the further infection. That is my first our personal comments. The second one, of course, as you know, China government issued a couple of IgG diagnostic kits. And these diagnostic kits is just for used as a supplemental for the beside of nucleic acid test, RT-PCR. And now most of the cases was diagnosed by RT-PCR. Of course, RT-PCR is much more reliable than the IG antibody test with very high sensitivity and very good specificity. For my personal feeling, well, the detection of IgM is not so good in the period of acute disease. That means after onset, in the, for example, 10 to 15 days after onset, well, the antibody test is not so stable, you know, and the different kits manufactured from different companies show different results. So we don't use it. We don't encourage our staffs or encourage our medical physician to use the data of that. However, for IgG testing, especially after 2 weeks of onset, well, we get very good results with higher sensitivity and very good specificity. So if you see, well, how I judge, well, the IgG, the antibody kits, well, I would like to see that it's a pretty new virus. We just know it for a couple of months, and we developed the kits. Not me, our Chinese techniques, as well as the colleagues working in the pharmaceutical company, developed the kits, and such kind of kits can be used in some special objective, for special objective, but it still needs long time to improve it. That is my comments. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Dr.
Thank you very much. I'd like the academicians, please, to raise the hand here at the screen if they want to talk. We're going to have academician Barros Franco to ask a question, but before that, I know that Chinese experts have been sent to Italy to help them. Have Chinese experts been sent to other countries also? Because I see that the Chinese expertise could be very useful to other countries facing different stages of the pandemic, including my own country, Brazil. You have been to Italy. Have you been to other countries?
The quick answer is yes. Probably Dr. Dong is a good position to give some list of the country we give the support. Dr. Dong, please.
His microphone is not on.
Dong Xiaoping 在吗?
I had to remove the mute.
Okay.
Sorry. Okay. Yeah, I try to answer your question. Yeah, not like Professor Zhou said. I'm not the correct person to answer this question. This question should be answered by some government officials. And beside of Italy, of course, we send different teams to different countries. For example, to UK in Europe, and to what I know in Saudi Arabia, Iran, Iraq in Western Asia, to Cambodia and in Southeastern Asia, and also to the Russia, as well as some Asia, some countries in the Middle Asia, I think. And of course, we don't go to Latin America, just like Brazil. And we are continue to send teams to African countries because we have medical teams in African country. We have 54 medical teams working in the different African countries for more than 60 years, continually dispatch the teams working over there. So these teams is just for 2 weeks to 1.5 months working over there, mainly supply some suggestion, recommendation, and discussion, but not for medical therapeutic, not for laboratory directly involved laboratory diagnosis or the field investigation. Just sharing our experience, just talking with the colleagues over there, just let them know what we have done, what we are doing, and what we will do. That is the teams we sent to Italy. Of course, with a lot of materials, for example, PPE, mask, ventilator, and some kind of drugs. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yes,
we have now, we're going to have now Professor Barros Franco, and after him, we have also a very interesting question regarding Chinese traditional medicine that you mentioned to be used among these patients. So I'm going to have Barros Franco to ask his question first, and then maybe one of you could comment on traditional Chinese medicine. Barros Franco, could you please go ahead?
Yes. My question is about treatment. I would like to know when and what kind of treatment, anticoagulant treatment you use, when began, and what drug for how long? The second question about treatment too is when to use tocilizumab. You begin in the beginning of the disease, or you have a special date to use it. And the third one is about ventilation. Are you using non-invasive ventilation? How flow oxygen, or non-invasive ventilation, or you still using intubation in the beginning of the treatment? These are my 3 questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Probably Dr. Chen, can you respond?
Okay, that's 3 good questions. The first, the traditional Chinese medicine, I'm not very qualified to ask that because I'm not in this area. But in our national guideline, they suggest several drugs, several medication too, and perhaps I don't know. There are some doctors specialized in Chinese medicine can ask the drug personally, and we actually give during all the period of the treatment that begin the first day in the hospitalization and after the first day, okay? And for all the patients too, mild patient, moderate patient, severe patient, critical patient too. So that's just my little advice. For anti-interleukin 6, we only use for severe patient and critical patient. If the patient take the treatment of antiviral, steroid, and other things, the symptom not approval, so we will give the interleukin 6. Actually, we are just in our hospital, Wuhan Tongji Hospital, Guanggu division, is only in my memory, 17 patients have received this treatment. Most of them had bad outcome. And the purpose for the treatment is one time. You can give a second time 48 hours after that. And for the ventilation, like I said in my short presentation, the high flow is better tolerated. The non-invasive ventilation is poor tolerance. We have the patient cannot just support that. And before I think before the end of the February, we also in the national guidelines, we also suggest to continue the non-invasive ventilation for 24 or 48 hours. If it's not approval, we will make invasive ventilation. But after the 6th version, we propose our specialists proposed 2 hours. If the 2 hours with no invasive ventilation, the samples not become better, we will intubate the patient. I hope I asked all the questions.
Thank you very much. So after maybe you tell us a little bit about traditional medicine, we have academician Mauricio Magalhães and Patricia Rocco already waiting for the questions. Would you comment on Chinese traditional medicine, please?
Yes, Dr. Dong. Dr. Dong, can you respond to this question on the Chinese traditional medicine, or Dr. Wu?
Well, it's not the suitable question for me, although my background is medicine. I learned Chinese medicine when I was in the college. That was 50 years ago. I love Chinese medicine, but frankly speaking, I have no fixed or stable, solid data to explain how efficiency of Chinese traditional medicine in treatment or in the therapeutic for COVID-19. I'm so sorry.
Thank you. Patricia Rocco, could you now have your question?
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you all for being here. Great talks. And I have one quick question to Dr. Wei, probably. As soon as the patient with COVID-19 arrived in the hospital, which are the drugs that you use in these kind of patients? The patients arrive in the hospital, you know, you have the diagnosis of COVID-19, so you have pneumonia, and you want to avoid these patients to go to ICU. Which are your strategy at this moment? So you don't, you know, the use of oxygen. Which are the drugs that you are used at this specific moment? Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for your question. That's very important for us because a lot of people, when we are in Wuhan, they come to the hospital. And first of all, we have not much drugs, antiviral. We have just abril, and just after 2 or 3 weeks, we began have the medication, the lopinavir and ritonavir. So the first 2 weeks, we just use abril and Chinese medicine too for the people. And like I said, the first presentation, the support therapy is very important. The nutrition and the oxygen and the rest in bed. And we monitor the symptoms, the temperature, and the blood test. And we see if there are some signs to go severe. And otherwise, we tested the serum interleukin 6, interleukin 2, TNF alpha, and for that, if this data goes higher, that means it will go severe. And in my opinion, I was not happy to use the steroid just in the first period. If the patient have the CT scan and the most information, a lot of information and the symptom and ARDS, I will give them, but not in the first period. In my opinion, that's very a new disease. We do not have the one drug very efficacy for the virus. There's a recent published, 3 published, I think, paper for remdesivir. That's a lot of hope, but not very comfortable results. So like I said, we just give the support and therapy. Yeah.
Thank you very much. So now we have Mauricio Magalhães, and after him, academician Celso Ramos. Mauricio. And Barsinski, but Mauricio first.
Thank you, Mr. President. Although it's a very quick question. We know that the patient, they have different outcomes. And I'd like to know if these different outcomes, we believe that can be by immunological reasons, or by the load of virus, or by the specimen of virus. I would like to ask if you have examined different specimens and you have identified different groups, and if they are more aggressive, that we can make a prognosis of the outcome of the patient based in the kind of virus. I would like to know if you have some research in this topic.
Yeah, Dr. Chen, please.
Okay, and I think now we have a lot of older patients and a lot of various comorbidities. This patient have bad outcome for that, and also the male patient is worse. And we have a female patient, they recover very fast. We don't know why, because perhaps they are more comorbidity in men. And the other things, there are some paper came out of the age. This just sort of by our Chinese specialist. The age, I think the age is the first thing, the comorbidity is the second thing. That's all my advice.
Thank you. Celso Ramos, could you go ahead? And after Celso Ramos, we have Barcinski and José Luis Gomes Amaral. Celso.
Oh, thank you, Mr. President. I would like to thank our Chinese colleagues. This has been a very most interesting morning, but it's actually been a very sobering one. I am very much impressed with the amount of work you've been able to do, and very quickly. And I am very dismayed considering what we have not been doing. We have not even considered the possibility of contact tracing. Actually, we are not even having contact reporting, not even control. So what we are going, I go along with Dr. Margaret Dalcomo's assessment. What we are going to see in Rio in the next 2 or 3 weeks will be something that will probably have no or very little similarity to what has been seen in the world. But I do have a few. I would like to praise what you have done, saying that well, bringing any criticism to China, to the Chinese people, or to the Chinese government at the moment reveals only bigotry and misinformation. I will not even say disinformation, but misinformation. That being said, I do have 2 or 3 questions. One, do you have any experience with HIV, co-infected patients with HIV and COVID-19? The patients I'm an infectious disease physician, and the patients I'm caring for at the moment, almost all of them are HIV infected. And so far, they have all been doing well. They're all been doing well, but I don't know. The second question is, what's the yield of temperature taken at large? This seems to be a cheap measure, but if you consider the amount of people you have to have doing that, and the amount of people that have to be tested, even if it is a very cheap test, it is not that cheap. When you multiply cents for millions or tens of millions, you get a very large amount. I would like to know, what is the yield when you go into the community at large? How many people, what the proportion of people you were able to detect with that? And third, I would like to know if you have an idea of what's the prevalence of infection. I mean, the antibody prevalence in Wuhan, at least at the moment. Thank you very much.
So maybe Dr. Wu Zhenyu, can you respond particularly on the co-infection with the HIV? And of course, the other 2 questions, maybe you also can respond.
Can answer every question.
Okay.
Thank you for that question. It's very important. In the early stage, we are worried about COVID-19 co-infection with HIV. So we have 2 databases. One is notified, but we have COVID-19. So that's total now we have over 80,000 of cases of COVID-19. And we have another information system for HIV. We have over 1.1 million cases of HIV infection. So we try to use the personal ID to merge these 2 data sets to check the co-infection COVID-19 with HIV infection. So we only find 56 people have co-infection. So we checked that 56 patients. It seems that we didn't observe any HIV infected people have severe symptoms or outcomes compared with a non-HIV infected individual. So originally we have a study hypothesis. We assuming HIV infected have their immune, have some function compromised by HIV. So the data does not support that. Probably the number of people are so small, or the infection rate are so low. So then I jump to your third question about the prevalence. So if we look at the spectrum of symptomatic, asymptomatic, so the asymptomatic, the proportion of asymptomatic is less than 30% based on the other epidemic pattern. So in the China, so we need to divide it by Hubei and outside of Hubei. In the Hubei, the prevalence is below 1 per 100,000. 1 per 100,000 is very, very low outside of Hubei. In Hubei, so in the Wuhan and Hubei excluding Wuhan, so that prevalence study, so we are still analyzing the data. So the prevalence is also not as high as we expected or we thought. So that result will soon be available probably in a couple of weeks. So because use serological study, even you have very good quality of test kits, the predictive value positive still low because the prevalence is low. Okay. Now let's talk about your second question about the temperature. So let me tell you what we do with the temperature for even like today. Each day, for me, I have at least 3 times temperature monitor. So I live in the Beijing, so the China CDC is in the suburb. So when I get on the shuttle bus, the driver tests my temperature. So my temperature below like 76, then I can get on a bus. If my temperature goes to up 75.8, then they will have red line. I cannot get on the shuttle bus. So when shuttle bus go to the campus, the CDC campus, and the security guard will get on to the shuttle bus and use the gun. The gun can automatically detect the temperature by each body, everyone in the shuttle bus. If we have anyone in the shuttle bus, temperature goes wrong, then the shuttle bus cannot get into the campus. So after the work, for example, when we finish this video conference, I need to go home. When I go home, in the community, they have a gate. At the gate, they have a security guard and monitor my temperature. If my temperature is okay, then I can continue to go home. If my temperature is high, then they need to contact the health agency and send me to the designated health facilities. So all of this performance is the program. It's universally performed in China. That's why I said it's a community mobilization and everybody take action. So only by doing that massive implementation of public health program, then we can identify cases in the early stage. Then we can quickly find early cases. Over. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. So now we have Marcelo Barsinski, we have Jose Amaral, we have Tabak, and we have also Benchimol 4. But there is also a question coming from a previous academician. Do you believe this infection also causes chronic diseases? Have you seen chronic neurological diseases or kidney or other organ disease after recovery of the acute infection?
Okay, Dr. Chen, can you respond?
Actually, we not faced this kind of disease. We find renal failure and other things, infection, attack at organ, but not chronic disease, unfortunately.
Thank
May
you.
I add something?
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, yeah, of course, just like my colleague Dr. Chen says, there is no evidence that the patient recover from infected with COVID-19 became chronic infection. That is also the feature of coronavirus. For example, the SARS in 2003. At very beginning, we thought there were maybe hundreds of them became chronic disease, not infection. For example, lung disease with the problem of respiratory symptoms. But however, well, the portion is extremely low. I mean, the patient is less than 10 cases. And for other human coronavirus infection, there is also no such kind of feature becoming long infection or chronic infection or long-term disease. So COVID-19 is a coronavirus. It contains all the biological features of coronavirus. Thank you.
Thank you. Barsinski, could you please go ahead?
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. President. I'm impressed with what has been done in China, and very much, as Professor Celso Ramos said, I'm very much worried with what has not been done here in our place. My question, I was going to ask about the temperature, but it was already answered. So I have a second quick question to know what is your experience with the use of convalescent plasma as a therapy, and if so, if you have any experience, which are the criteria of including the recipient at which moment of the disease, and to include the donor of the plasma, which characteristics you look at the plasma to include them as a therapeutic agent? Thank you.
Yeah, maybe Dr. Chen. Is it clear of the question?
Yeah, okay, actually, during these 2 months in Wuhan, we just very rare cases use convalescent plasma. In our hospital, in the hospital I worked, there are over 20 patients, I think, but everyone have the better outcome. I think half of them just receive 1 transfusion, and the other one 2. And I think in Wuhan Jingyi Hospital, they have launched clinical research. There are over more than 100 patients in this research. I think you can find some paper after all. And the education for the convalescent plasma, I think, is for severe patient. And my advice is for the early period of the severe patient too. Because when we arrived in February, there were no more patients who had recovered, so no more convalescent plasma. But at the month of March, the end of March, we have a plan of the plasma, and so the hospital headquarters advised we use more, and because I think the severe patient or even the moderate patient, sometimes they will get worse. So if we have planned the convalescent plasma, I will give it in early period.
May I add something?
Yes, go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah, according to the, well, one of the colleague, my friend working in the Chinese Academia of Medical Science, he said in a conference, of course, there are roughly more than 300 patients who received the plasma collected from convalescent patient. And there is no published data, of course. According what he said is, such kind of treatment produce some good, effective in somehow. But I'm also waiting for the solid data for evaluating the therapeutic effect. However, what I want to say is the serum was collected from the patient. Before use to the other patient, the serum was very, very carefully and tested not only for coronavirus antibody titer with neutralization assays, but also testing for in order to avoid any potential contamination of other virus or microorganisms, as well as the level of cytokine, for example, IL-6 has been also tested to avoid any side effect. So those antiserum or those plasma was prepared from special pharmaceutical company, the largest pharmaceutical company in China, and then distributed to the different hospitals. Over.
Thank you. Well, we have now Amaral, Tabak, Benchimol, and Gerson. We're getting short on time, so please, short questions and short answers. Amaral.
First of all, my congratulations. High standards talks, questions, answers, outstanding work, and thank you very much for sharing your experience with us. That's for Dr. Chen, I think. I would like to hear your comments about the place of prone positioning strategy before starting considering intubation and mechanical ventilation, and after mechanical ventilation also.
So anyone can respond?
You want the question to be repeated, maybe?
So I would like to know where is the place for prone positioning before considering intubation and mechanical ventilation, or even the use of prone positioning after ventilation.
Dr. Chen.
Actually, we proceed a very rare position in ventilation, and in our ward we never provide that. But the other team, medical team, use that when the patient was in invasive ventilation. But other hospital, other team use the patient with non-invasive ventilation use this position too. And actually, they have also better outcome too. There is some specialists suggest that even patient just with oxygen, they can change the position to when he is in the bed. So I have rarely experience for that, but with other things, other specialists say I will agree that a progressive position is good, even with the patient knowing mechanical not in the ventilation.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tabak, your time.
Good morning, Mr. President. Thank you for this opportunity. My question still relates to the use of plasma. If we go back to the Spanish flu, most of the patients actually have received the plasma at the earlier phase. But I believe your colleagues demonstrated that this was actually, there was a response in patients that were given already on the ventilator that had very high elevated, they had elevated levels of IL-6. So my question is, do you believe that the response to plasma, is it really related to the neutralizing antibodies? Because at the later phase, I believe that there's not that much virus going on and mostly is the inflammation. So the question is really, is plasma doing this regarding the neutralizing antibodies, or would you believe that has anything been studied regarding some other kind of anti-inflammatory role of plasma regarding the effect? This will be one question. The other one, if you could just mention, on patients that recover, have they maintained the IgG levels? Is that something that we can say, what is the real evidence that these patients became immune? Thank you.
So, Dr. Dong, this is your expert area.
I tried my best to answer your question. Of course, this is not my field. And I think the clinician, my colleague, Dr. Chen Wei, would like answer part of the question. And first, of course, and I fully agree with you, the speculation or the thought that if the plasma worked well, of course, I personally believe it depends on, or largely depends on the neutralizing antibody in the serum, of course. And the problem is the plasma used for patient varied from different hospital. You know, some hospital used for very severe, critical severe cases, and some for the severe cases, or some for the moderate cases. And I ask my colleagues working in different hospitals to, put them together, the result together, and then probably we can have a whole picture. Although the number is not very large, 300 patients is not very large to get any, fixed conclusion, but can supply them some research direction for further. That is my comments for the convalescent serum used for treatment. And your second question was, I forget, I'm sorry.
Yeah, that was regarding the maintenance of the immune response. The patients have recovered.
Oh, yes.
They maintained levels of neutralizing antibodies?
That is also a very challenging question. And the question is yes and no. Yes means, as I mentioned previously, from the clinically and in the epidemiologically, we don't identify, or even we don't see any patient to be reinfected again during the epidemic. Of course, the epidemic is persistent in China only 3 months, perhaps not long enough. Perhaps the patient is still in the isolating situation. Perhaps the patient has had no chance to expose to the virus again at that moment. But imagine more than 80,000 cases. There is no one to be reinfected again. Probably highlight that the possibility to be reinfected is extremely lower in this year. I dare not to see next year. And the second one, if the patient showed IgG response, IgG titer when he discharged from hospital, of course, we dare not to see this patient is fully immunity, because we don't know exactly how high the titer of neutralizing antibody. We even don't check the neutralizing antibody.
Right.
And we don't know which kind of antibody is useful to protect the virus again.
Right.
Not only for the patient, but also for normal people who is potential, have the chance to get to the future developing the vaccine. So The answer is yes, we don't see any patient to be infected, and no, we don't know the answer. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Academician Claudio Benchimol, please.
Good morning, Mr. President. There is a statement made by the FDA and WHO that both made the statements that smoking may increase both the risk of COVID-19 and overall severity. But the publications show that less than 10% of the persons accommodated by the COVID-19 are smokers. We can suppose that smoking is good for health in the era of COVID-19.
Maybe Dr. Wu Zhenyu, have some epidemiology data showing that smoking?
No data. I think it's a personal story. Dr. Dong Xiaoping is the best person to answer.
Okay. Dr. Dong.
Yeah, just a joke, because I am a smoker. I have no data at all. Sorry.
Okay.
No idea.
So we try to collect data. However, we do not have the cigarette smoking data in the COVID-19 database. So so far we cannot answer that. Sorry.
That was a very good question. Academician Gerson Canedo, please.
That's very happy this morning about the very interesting Chinese conference. I pose four questions. How many patients got encephalitic symptoms and strokes? Second question, how many patients develop Guillain-Barré syndrome? What about myasthenic patients and the COVID virus? And the last question, what about the blockers of angiotensin and the seriousness the patients got this disease? Thank you very much. I congratulate my Chinese colleagues.
Thank you for your question. Maybe Dr. Chen, you maybe respond some of them, and Dr. Dong will be respond to another part. Dr. Chen, are you there?
Dr. Chen, please.
Sorry, I just get off the line. I don't have the question.
Okay, then Dr. Okay.
No, this is not my question. Out of my knowledge.
Sorry. 周玉华，你在吗？你能回答半个问题吗？周玉华老师。 他也不在是吧？
I'm here. I beg your pardon for your first questions.
Okay.
Can you repeat your question?
Gerson, could you repeat your question, please? Louder.
How many patients develop Guillain-Barré syndrome? Have you patients with myasthenia and covirus? Last question, what about blockers of angiotensin and the seriousness of the disease?
My signal is poor, very poor, and I cannot very clearly hear the question.
Okay.
But somebody repeat this question, perhaps. Well, the voice is too bad. I mean,
in the meantime, I'm gonna ask Academician Marcelo Morales, that is working at the Ministry of Science and Technology in Brasilia, also to ask a question. Marcelo, go ahead, please. Marcelo represents a group of people that is working 24 hours a day, try to make our government do better than they are doing now. Go ahead, Marcelo.
Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Louder, please, Marcelo.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. President. And congratulations to the Chinese colleagues for the brilliant presentation. Congratulations. My question is regarding the control, the strategy control of the virus mutation in China by sequencing, and if you observe an important mutation in the virus.
Yeah, Dong Xiaoping, please.
Yes, we have performed a lot of whole genome sequencing. I don't know the exact number, but I do believe more than hundred thousands of them, different samples from different patients. And of course, what I know is there is no special mutation showing any significance in disease transmission or in the clinical severity. So the virus, of course, there's mutations, of course. But for such kind large RNA virus, the mutation is very, very a small portion comparing the whole genome. And particularly, there is no, significant mutations so far. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. There is a question also from academician Claudio Tadeo.
Yes. Yes. Thank you, Mr. President.
Louder, please. Louder.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So I'd like to salute our Chinese colleagues, especially Dr. Zhu, my colleague at the board of the International Federation for Tropical Medicine. I was quite impressed by the quality of the presentations and obviously by the importance of the work that has been done to control the
Claudio, we are very short on time. Very short on time. Do it.
Okay. So I have a question. I think that's to Dr. Chen. You told that you have it seems that the most effective drug is ritonavir, and the one with the most side effects is hydroxychloroquine. And after the letter of Dr. Gao and the work by Dr. Gautre, that is a small, not robust study, there is not any additional evidence of the effectiveness of chloroquine for treating COVID. And on the other side, we have evidence that it's quite toxic. So could you please comment on that, please?
Okay, for this hydroxychloroquine, we have the use for several patients. And like I said, just the beginning, we just epidural. And after 2 or 3 weeks, we have the leponavir, ritonavir, and hydroxychloroquine. We used it for several patients. We find more side effects, but there's no difference between there's no difference for the change of symptoms or change of stature. So we do not have the results to say that hydroxychloroquine is more effective, or the leponavir or ritonavir is more effective. But by the way, we both find some problem for the liver, for nausea, a lot of side effects in these two treatments. So perhaps I was not better present. That means now we have no such antiviral drug for this virus. Just perhaps the several papers mentioned the remdesivir. The new the remdesivir is perhaps the possible effective drug, but we do not have the results, or we do not have very confidence for that. So, like I said, the antiviral drug we can always use. We can always wait for if there is change or not, but no very confidence.
Thank you very much. We have academician Manassés that lives in northeast of Brazil. Manassés, are you there?
Okay, I am here.
Go ahead.
I would like to make a quick question about the fibrosis that you develop in the lungs at the beginning of the disease. My question is, in Italy, they had a a great amount of people that develop hypertension. did you find any change in the hypertensive patients after they are cured?
Okay, Dr. Chen, how about the hypertension?
First, hypertension, yes, we have several patients with higher hypertension. We treated this patient with normal drugs with ACI, ARB, and CCB, and we find the poor outcome for this kind of patient. Other paper by Chinese specialists find the same thing.
Thank you. Well, going back to academician Gerson Canedo, his sound was not clear. Gerson, I understand that you asked the relationship between COVID infection and stroke, Guillain-Barré, and other neurologic chronic disease. Is this your question? Hello. Well, it seems that we still have some problems of communication. We are already a little behind, and maybe it's time to close this session. And thanks our guests for this superb scientific meeting. I believe that, again, we are very pleased and thankful to Professor Zhu Yun and all the experts that he has brought to us. And we have enjoyed very much this discussion. And as I said in the beginning, we sincerely hope that in the near future, we're going to be able to have a real meeting with you all in Rio de Janeiro, and we can go ahead and more interactions and partnership between our countries and our medical communities. It's been a great meeting, and I give the word to you and Mauricio Magalhães to close it, please. Mauricio, why don't you speak first?
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Zhu. Thank you all the Chinese experts for this outstanding presentation. It was really, will help us. We are very impressed, as we have said before, with how the hard work you have done, how you have control in a big country like China with all the resources that you have. I think we were impressed, and of course we have a lot of things to learn with you. And we thank you very much, and we really hope, as we talked last year, that we will be more close in the future to have more cooperation. I thank you, President, and thank you, the past President George Alberto, who opened this opportunity for us. Thank you very much.
Just to remind everybody that Dr. Caio Regatieri will produce a podcast of this meeting, and this is going to be available also on YouTube in the next days. Professor Zhu, would you like to close the meeting?
Yes, thank you so much, President Belfort from the National Academy of Medicine of Brazil. It is our pleasure to participate in this virtual meeting on the efforts to cope with the COVID-19 between the National Academy of Medicine of Brazil and the China CDC and the Regional Hospital Shanghai Jiao Tong University School of Medicine. So this is a very great meeting. Not only our Chinese colleagues, they presented their experiences or lessons we learned from our battle to the COVID-19, but also we can learn each other through the question and answer part. And at least from this meeting, we can realize that COVID-19 is a new disease that has caused a great impact to the people's daily life extraordinary. So we, as a common community of shared future for human being, needed to take a collectively and quickly strong emergency response as a battle against our common enemy, the COVID-19. So this is a new coronavirus, not only happening in China, but also spread in the world. So this is really important for us to be work together and combat this disease together. So all partners of the international community and the country leaders are encouraged to proactively taking strategic action as soon as possible to fighting the COVID-19 together. So here now we really symptoms to our friends in the Brazil. You are in the stage to the increasing our number of the cases, and but we in China are facing the challenge as well for those imported cases from Europe and particularly those Chinese students come back to China. So we would like to protect the second wave. So those lessons we learned, we already share here, and maybe we can have a second meeting as well in the future. But not only the virtual, but also the face-to-face meeting in the future. So we predicted that this virus is really give us a hard time. We hope we can in the future we can continue work together and have more work to do together. So thank you so much for your invitation, and we join this meeting. Thank you.
Professor Zhu, I want to tell you that also you've been superb as a chair and amazing the way that you are able to allow your team to respond to the questions in a very nice way. Congratulations personally for your behavior here. Very good, congratulations. And let's say that we would like very much maybe to hold another meeting like this in 6 months. And maybe in 6 months, we're gonna have some good news, both countries, and we're gonna celebrate the advance of medicine and science. On behalf of Brazilian National Academy of Science, again, thank you very much and congratulations for the good work.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
The meeting is closed. Thank you very much for everything. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.